Hi, pal. Welcome to I've Got Your Back, the podcast. My name is Michelle Sutherland, and this is a place where I want to empower and inspire you to tap into the deepest desires of your heart and discover the magic within. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of I've Got Your Back, the podcast. I am super excited today and honoured because I've got a very special guest on, and I'm just going to go through his bio and then I'm going to share a wee story of how we actually met. So I'm going to make sure I get that right. Pepe Marais. Marais? Is that right? I'm nearly there.
Almost there, Marais.
Marais. Pepe Marais. So Pepe is one of South Africa's thought leaders on the subject of personal and organisational purpose. His definition of success is to create an environment of harmony and joy where the focus is on our well-being of people, growing them to achieve the highest levels of self-worth, honesty, and excellence by nurturing ideas, dreams, and trust. Pepe is the founding partner and group chief executive creative officer of brand and communications group Joe Public, and is currently ranked as the #1 creative leader in the South African advertising industry. He holds a doctoral degree in business management with a focus on organization, purpose, and conscious leadership, as a published author and a thought leader on how purpose unlocks creativity. Pepe facilitates transformational leadership journeys, which I was a part of, and that's why we met. For corporate executives, works with executive leadership teams to define business strategy based on corporate purpose, and is a passionate keynote speaker on the subject of purpose as a life strategy. His reason for being is to bring out the best in those around him. Wow, what an introduction. And I just wanted to share that Pepe and I met in a beautiful place called Farmhouse 58, and it's about 30 minutes outside of Johannesburg in South Africa. And my pal Tom and I were co-hosting a purposeful leadership immersion in that location. And when Tom and I first started talking about this, who were we going to bring in, what were we going to do with these 20 executives from a corporate organization, Tom said we have to get Pepe. It was the first thing he said, and obviously I didn't know who Pepe was. And and we invited Pepe in. He came in, and honestly, I was just sitting there and I was like, yes, for so many things that Pepe said, what things that I've learned and things that I believe in. But there was definitely things that Pepe said in a way that I thought was really powerful, and in a way that I'd never really heard before. And so that's why I've invited Pepe on to share his work, share his voice. I know that he's really eager to share more. So welcome, Pepe.
Thanks, Michelle. What an introduction. I don't get embarrassed with it, but it's such a mouthful.
Yeah.
And I'm so conscious that I really feel like I'm at the beginning of something special. So that's like these big words and lofty things. But thank you for that. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. And one of the things I wanted to delve in straight away, because one of the things that stood out for me when you spoke was this one word purpose or one word concept for your life. Now, I have shared with my audience and my community many times, like, have a one word for your year. And I've done that for the last 10 years. I've chosen a word to focus on to be my guiding light for the year. But when I heard you speak about this one word for your life and just focusing on that one word, which you can share what your word was, but I just was like, oh, that's curious. I wonder if maybe I just choose one word versus what changing the word each and every year. So I would love for you to share the one word concept, just in case no one's heard of that before, or how you came about it, or why you think it's important. Yeah, I would just love for you to share a bit more on that.
So interesting. I ran another workshop yesterday in Cape Town, beautiful Cape Town. And someone asked me exactly the same thing. Can I have a word? And I also know about the approach of choosing a word for the year. And I think that strategy really works, because it does give you that focus for a year. And then the next year you construct a new word and it gives you focus for that year. because it's all about focus. Like when you double your focus, you double your chances of manifesting what you desire. And if you half your focus, so I love this idea of focus. But the first thought that came up for me now when you said that, I was going, okay, but I've got one brain and I've got one muscle. And if I continue to exercise my one muscle, I build the strength of that muscle. So I would say the idea of one word, but there's a much deeper reason to this one word approach. But I'll first just say, just logically, exercising one word over and over again over time could compound into quite exceptional focus and understanding of the depth of one word. So that will be like on a logical level, but on a more spiritual level, I've discovered, it's 18 years ago, this profound insight. It's the most profound insight that I found in my 56 years on this planet. It came to me at 38. It came through very deep introspection, very deep transformative work. And how I made sense of the experience was that just like we have our human names, Michelle and Pepe, or whatever your parents, if you're privileged enough to have parents, what they gave you, the name they gave you at birth, your human name, we all have a being name. And it's very specific and it's deeply unconscious, but it's very specific. It's your birthright to what you were born into this world to manifest. So that as a concept to me, like you will never change Michelle as your human name, most likely not, from birth to death. And similarly, I now believe that purpose word at your soul, at your belly button, your reason for existence, is potentially present even after this lifetime. Potentially, who knows? It's all hypothesis, But I've had a lot of experience in seeing the power of manifestation of that level of clarity, because it's so deep that it gives you so much energy to negate this crazy, complex, volatile, uncertain world we live in. So yeah, a beautiful rudder and strategy for life.
And can you share, would you be open to sharing your word and sort of how that plays out and how you really connect with it? Obviously you had that profound experience, but what is your word and how does that play out in your life every day?
So I can actually contextualize, because then through, it's always after the fact that you have like 20/20 vision. You have the experience and it feels terrible and you go through, and looking back on life, there's so much more clarity. I'm not looking back on life yet. I hope there's many years to come still. Whoever knows. But interestingly, my childhood trauma, because we all have childhood trauma. We don't want to look at the trauma, but we all have childhood trauma. And those traumatic events are not always massive. They could be someone just saying, well, you're stupid, not even meaning it. Because maybe that person's got trauma and now they're reacting to you as a child of 5 and saying you're stupid or you're useless. And you absorb that we all absorb these feedbacks into our unconsciousness. My limiting assumption about myself formed probably, if I think back the first time at the age of 3, was I'm not good enough. And then many events from that experience, hundreds of events, reaffirmed my unconscious belief that I'm not good enough. And many, probably hundreds and even thousands of mini events through my growing from child into adulthood, which then unconsciously affected my adult behavior. And what I discovered, which I think is the most beautiful thing about life, is that unconscious assumption is the key that unlocked my purpose word. And with that knowledge now, I look at all those events, and there were some horrific ones. I had a very challenging upbringing, and as many, many millions of people have. I'm not special. But the beautiful thing is that when you become aware of how this beautiful system called life works, which I'm still assuming, but it really feels true, And I don't think it's true. I really feel it's true, which is also interesting. Like as I'm saying it, I feel in my heart and in my instinct, my gut, I feel I'm talking the truth now. My logic goes like, I don't know if it's true. That's just the brain that's not that clever. And my word is greatness. And it's the furthest, most liberating opposite assumption of I'm not good enough. If I was another person struggling with I'm not good enough, I could have been worthy, or I could have been amazing, or I could have been incredible. So it's not, we all have different interpretation of what's the most opposite. If I'm useless, the most opposite could be useful, but I could also express it as I'm brilliant. If my assumption is I'm ugly, it could be beautiful, but it could also be I'm special or I'm significant. I worked with a person the other day whose most limiting assumption was I'm not worthy. And a liberating assumption was I am free.
Wow.
I saw the shift. And that was a parent expecting very high performance of a child from a very young age. And that narrative, obviously, when it wasn't achieved, or even when it was achieved, was like never good enough. So that individual's interpretation was, I'm not worthy, whereas mine is, I'm not good enough. And another person's, I'm useless. But that is the key that unlocked and it was through a very, very deep experience to unlock it. And that's my word, I'm greatness. The interesting thing is just like, the embryo or the human being, which one creates the most impact? Obviously, the adult human being has the ability to create impact, but we need the embryo. So in terms of purpose, the word is the embryo. It is the essence of who I am, but what it means when I actually interpret it is my purpose on this planet is to bring out greatness in those around me. So to bring out the best, to bring out their greatness. So I'm in service of others. But how I do it is to bring out the best in myself first. So I have to consistently work on my childhood limitations. I've had huge aggression that I had to work through. I found that in mid-40s, I had the emotional intelligence of a 20-year-old. I had to work on that. At the moment, I'm working on frustration, that things aren't happening fast enough. I'm working with acceptance. I'm working with surrender. So it's guiding me to do the things that will make me the best version of myself. And the closer I am to the best version of myself, the more I can serve others to be the best version of themselves. So it's a magnificent strategic approach to life.
Yeah, it is. I've got a question. Do you think or believe that all purpose has to come from some pain or some sort of trauma, or do you believe that that's the case for everyone?
Yeah, I do. But now we can also talk about, well, what's the depth of pain? It could be multiple small pains add up to one big pain. I mean, Carl Jung did say that you need a breakdown to have a breakthrough. I think R.D. Laing, from your neck of the woods, I think he's either Scottish or Irish, might be Scottish. R.D. Laing, psychologist, also believes that to have a spiritual breakthrough, you need to go through a level of trauma. And in my experience, what we do as human beings, because we want our lives to be summer, it must be spring and summer. But nature doesn't work like that. Nature works with autumn and winter, and time for reflection and time for rebirth and learning and development. And we can't actually grow if we don't make mistakes and have faults and flaws in our lives. So I believe it's natural that we need to break down to have breakthroughs. I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't wish upon anyone to go through the things we do go through, but I do think it's part of our evolution.
Yeah. And what would you say to people because obviously, like you said, people want it to be summer all the time. And you can imagine, and I see this in myself sometimes, mainly in personal, intimate relationships, I I can easily avoid that difficult conversation, or like knowing that I've had this trauma, and then how does that play out in my, most intimate relationship. And people do avoid the pain. They do avoid facing that trauma or that pain, and perhaps not even knowing that on the other side of that could be a really beautiful thing, like what you just described, how you've turned it into your purpose and how you show up every day. What would you say to people that struggle to lean in and face that pain or trauma? Like, what is the maybe it's not one answer, but people I think would be sitting there thinking, okay, well, that's fine. I've got the awareness. I understand. I've got these traumas or multiple things or one tiny thing that's been building up over time. Like, where do you go from there with that awareness?
I'm just gonna have to answer whatever comes up. It's quite a question.
I know, sorry.
And I'm not.
That's coming up for me. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, I was thinking I should do a PhD in psychology as well, because I'm treading into territories which I'm not perceived to be experienced in, but my cellular learning on this, and the way I've experienced this approach, is just so magnificent. And one of my frustrations that I experience is I don't have the communication skills yet to really get people to get it. I think there's a poem by Marianne Williamson, which is probably my favorite poem. And I don't know it well enough to recite it, but I would say anyone listening, go and read that poem. Our deepest fear is actually our own greatness and our own magnificence and our own beauty. So I think there's a fear of stepping into this as an approach to life, because it takes a lot of responsibility. It's much easier to sit on the sidelines of life and blame other people and just blame situations, than to step into real responsibility and go, no, I am beautiful, and my job is to create beauty all around me in a very ugly perceived world. It's too much responsibility. So then I would build on that, and I would say, well, if you are consuming it and you go, yeah, but how do I step in? I would just say, step in. You owe it to yourself as a human being to step into your beingness, because we are so powerful. And if you choose not to, then take responsibility for the life that you have, in the absence of actually realizing it can be a lot greater. So I just think it's choice, and either side has a responsibility. But it's like anything. I would rather try something and fail at it than not try at all.
yeah,
Because even through that, there's growth.
yeah, always.
Mm.
You this sort of stepping in, you spoke about this when I met you as well, about this sort of, we have this infinite ability or infinite power. And so it's probably part of like stepping in, like, what is infinite power and how do people step into that? Could you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah. And I feel I'm at the beginning of it, and maybe my destiny is in 10 or 15 or 20 years. If God willing, if I'm really still fit and healthy and strong, maybe this really will land and it will be the truth. I don't know. But I will say one thing though. In my experience, what I've learned about purpose and vision, because everyone's always talked about vision, but to me, vision in the absence of purpose is just self-serving. But if you find your purpose and you then construct, what do I want to achieve in this lifetime? It's amazing how much more service orientated the vision becomes. So, but then what I've learned is, whether I ever get to be 100% on purpose, which I'm not, or whether I ever get to achieve my vision, it really doesn't matter, as long as I live every day towards being who I'm meant to be and achieving my purpose and my vision. So the invitation is not to take it so seriously and you're suddenly going to change the world and you just take the blue pill from the matrix and the life is going to be brilliant. No. But that direction just makes every day so profound. It's fascinating. So this infinite power, what I found out through my whole journey of interrogating the subject, is just in terms of processing power of the conscious brain, which is 2000 bits per second, and the unconscious underneath the neck, the feeling, the heart, the emotions, the spiritual intelligence, the navel, the gut, the instinct, the attraction to another human to become your life partner, as an example. There's like no logic there. There's just an attraction. I now know that attraction is actually pain, unconscious pain. We're attracted to the similar pain. And then in those relationships, we learn to heal each other's pain. If we're aware of it, normally we interpret it as conflict, because overly needy will attract overly independent, but they're both just responding to something at childhood that made them feel in a certain way. But that unconsciousness processes at 400 billion bits per second. So to Africanize it, that's the weight of an ant. A South African ant, the average weight is 2 milligrams, 2,000th of a gram. So this thing that we think is on control is an ant. And the unconsciousness has the power of a 9-month-old 400-kilogram baby elephant. So we're sitting with this baby elephant in us that we're not even aware of. And that's who's really in control. And when you get to name that power and focus that power in a way of serving more than just yourself, in my experience, it is almost incomprehensible how life starts opening up for you. So then interrogating religion at the moment, having been brought up as a Christian and then moving away from Christianity, I'm moving back to Christianity at the moment. I'm reading the Bible, I'm reading Unlocking the Bible, I'm looking for sources of validation of what I'm onto, looking at history and powerful reading. And it is fascinating to me about the double creation in Genesis. There seems to be, it's not completely clear, but there seems to be a being creation and a human creation. And I'm also toying with this concept, because it's all just assumptions at the moment. Evolution is also an assumption. It's not completely fact-based. And so is creation. But this idea that we are in the image of something greater. So I'm toying with this thought. I'm going, if it is true that there is a God, because believing is seeing. I mean, we got to just choose a lane and believe, and then believing becomes manifestation. So that's why I don't even question if this is the truth. I just believe it is, and I go. Because otherwise, I'm just going to talk in riddles and not act. That's another thing.
Yeah.
The intention, intention to bring out the best in others is the intention. The action is bringing out the best in myself. That's the work. But if it is true that there is a God, and we are created in the image of that God, and God created the world and everything on it, what's my creative power? And that's where this thing comes from. That's quite a statement to consume and think about.
It's huge.
Because if it's true, then is it enough that I'm only doing, well, I don't want to talk about enough because I know I am beyond good enough. But hence, I'm shooting much further than an organization of 300 people, employment. For me, I want to do much more with this and manifest much more. And I want to make a lot more money, because money is the root of all good. And with money, I can affect more positive change for others. I've got enough money for myself, but I want to make more money because capital can be used for good.
Yeah.
So, but then another person might find their purpose, and let's say their purpose is just to be a magnificent parent. And they live their parent out and become the most magnificent parent in the history of mankind, but they could be raising like a world leader that really affects positive change in this world, So you can never, a purpose is never about affecting millions. There's no difference more significant in affecting 1 million people to affecting one person positively. Energetically, universally, they resonate at the same level. That's a fact. Whether you help 1,000 people or one person, if you're doing it profoundly coming from a place of service, it energetically vibrates at the same level.
Yeah.
So for me, that also says that purpose is not about changing the world. It's about doing what you can do with what's given to you.
And what's true to you. Because obviously, if that's true to you about being a mother, meet so many women that are struggling and mothers of just being a mother. And like you said, like that nurturing and that role can be that part, like the purpose. And I think it's one of the divine purposes of all women is to have
Incredible,
that, you know?
incredible. My wife's purpose um, is her word is free, and it's to free herself and others from unhealthy habits. But her circle of influence, she's much more support role. It's all about making sure she's freed me from cholesterol through eating. So she's given me the future. I should have been in my next life, in my early 40s. I would have had a heart attack if she didn't intervene. She's fully on her purpose, but she's applying it to a much smaller circle of influence than what I'm privileged to have. Does that make me more than her? No, I am because of her.
Mm.
So everything that I'm doing is actually because of her. So it's a fascinating, it's a thing we do to ourselves as human beings, or actually more as humans, because we're not aware that we are beings. We're actually being humans. And if you listen to the two words, human versus being, I mean, I can just feel being feels so much more resonant.
Yeah, definitely.
But we're trapped in humanness. So we go, I'm not good enough. Oh, I'm just a mother. No, you've probably got the most noble purpose in the world if you're a mother. You're not just a mother, you're raising the future. So yeah, it's a beautiful, it keeps it quite real. It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Definitely. And just to pick up on something you said, and I didn't think this was going to come up, but it's interesting. It's coming up in a lot of conversations in my circle around people returning to Christianity or
Mm.
like Jesus Christ, or even if it's like you're just studying and, making assumptions, but going back to those sort of readings. And essentially it's wisdom, right? Going back to that wisdom and those teachings. I'm actually hearing a lot more people do that, which is really
Yeah.
fascinating why that's coming up at this time.
It's incredible. I mean, I think what happened in 2007 when I found my purpose, it felt like if I had a combination lock, one of those ones you get in suitcases with like 20 numbers and you have to put them all in order to open I think in 2007 I was given the first number of that lock. And then through my growth and experience and all my mistakes, I had a lot of other little clicks. And then I had an experience in Ireland the year before last, August of 2023, which was a come to Jesus moment. It happened at the back end of quite a traumatic experience in South Africa again. So another breakdown. So it was almost like my journey was meant to have another breakthrough. And my experience in Ireland definitely reintroduced me to religion. But what I've chosen to do is to operate a bit more like a Trojan horse, because I think the interpretation of religion's given a religion a bad rap. So I would absolutely state that I'm definitely a Christian. I've moved back to Christianity, but I'm a beginner,
Mm.
and I'm finding the source of material that I'm engaging with is definitely supporting what logically could be perceived as an assumption. It's definitely supporting the truth of it.
Wow.
So yeah, it's an amazing journey, and that's again where that purpose is taken. The purpose led me there.
Yeah.
So it's a strategy.
Yeah, that it definitely is because you're sort of following that purpose, that word. Like, so if I'm going to embody greatness and I'm going to help others, then what's the next action I need to take on this journey? I'm curious about Ireland and I'm curious about place. And this is
Mm.
completely going down a rabbit hole, but I want to go down it because I feel deeply connected to places. Like when I came to South Africa, I knew I was getting pulled to South Africa probably about 18 months before it happened because I just kept meeting another South African, and I was like, why am I collecting all these South African pals? Like, it was just like unbelievable. Like, probably 10 people within like every single month. And I thought the land is calling me in. I could actually physically feel that it was time to go. And obviously, when I went, it was for a very specific purpose, which is in line with my work. Um,
Yeah.
but when I got to the land, I just felt like every part of the elements I just absorbed the energy of South Africa. And I was like, wow. And I remember one night, actually, it was after the immersion, I went on safari and I got woken up in the middle of the night, but because I didn't know Johannesburg was very known for thunderstorms and all that area. And I got woke up. Honestly, I thought that my time was up because it was like a bolt of the most thunderous, rawest noise I've ever heard in my life. Woke me up through my heart, and I literally woke up from the bed and I went, "That's it. Like this is game over." Because it was so powerful, and I actually felt in that moment, I said, "Something's happened to me." Like just by being on the land. And I'm just curious, when you were in Ireland, I do think and I've had the pleasure of spending time with when I was in Australia, some Aboriginal elders, and they speak about like there's no difference between land and us, and we actually come from either rock or mountain or ocean, and we're very, very connected. There's no separation. And so the more I find myself getting drawn to pieces of land, I sort of energetically and spiritually, I'm soaking things up, the wisdom that's in that land, because it was there well before us. So I'm just curious about you going to Ireland and why it had to be Ireland, and like the connection back to religion, and because it is Ireland is very well known for religion, and like you said, it's now given you another deeper learning on your next evolution of greatness. So I'm just curious about your thoughts on land and being on places.
I haven't considered that, but I can tell you, as you're speaking, I've got a very good friend. I've been friends with him. I'm 56 this year. I've been friends with him for 51 years. And he relocated to Ireland. And we stay in contact like once a month, we'll speak. And he was sending me pictures of the space, of what this place looks like. I've never been to Ireland before, 2023. My wife's also, through a lineage, is connected to Ireland. But neither of us have ever been there. But if I reflect back on how I ended there, it wasn't just and that's also points towards this internal, unbelievable wisdom if we just go with it. Because now I've had this traumatic experience, flew from South Africa to London on business, worked from the Wednesday to the Friday, and then I was going to Amsterdam for a meeting the next Monday. So I had the weekend. And if I reflect back, it wasn't a feeling, oh, let me go and visit my friend. I had a deep sense that something's going to happen in Ireland. And then what happened was this event happened. This last click. If I had to write a book about it, I'll call it the final click. Although I'm going through more clicks, so who knows? It's like a never-ending click.
The never-ending click.
Ending click until the day we die, and
Clickety
then
click.
it's like crazy.
Yeah.
What came into my consciousness was when I wrote down my purpose word in a state of high energetic vibration, and semi-consciousness. So I'm aware what's going on, but I'm almost in a meditatory state, but I'm vibrating at a high level. My intuition, my entire beingness told me that my greatness word is a lowercase g, so not a capital. It's very important for me when I express it. It's a which is also indication in terms of language, and that's also part of my journey towards being the best version of myself, is to become softer, because I can be extremely hard, because I'm hardened through my first 14 years of experience, and how I grew up for my first 14 years, and the trauma.
Yeah.
Very hardened by that. So in adulthood, I'm extremely hard. And I've been softening a lot. I mean, my wife was like, she can't believe I'm the same person as a few years ago.
Wow.
So So the G of the greatness being lowercase is very significant for me. So it's not a wow, so it's just a gentle greatness.
Mm.
And I would like to, through my example, especially with men, I would love to show that you can be vulnerable, you can be soft, we can be all these things. It actually makes us stronger. It's counterintuitive, but it does. And then what I found once I had that click in Ireland, I was like on the flight from Dublin back to Heathrow, and I was like just reflecting, and I realized that the T of greatness in the middle of T is the cross. And my original drawing of greatness didn't have a T with a thing. It was greatness with a T. So that's why I'm saying these things are quite prolific.
Wow.
Yeah, they're quite,
Mm-hmm.
and of course one can argue, but that's interpretation. And I'm going, there's too many coincidences to not start saying there's a level of something special going on here. And again, you can choose that. So you can go like, okay, it's just like a coincidence, or you can go like, no, this is absolute, like me meeting you, and having that experience with you and with Tom. And we don't know where we're going to end with all these things that we aspire and the value we want to add. And you look back in 10 years, and you go like, wow, look at that.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
made a significant difference to some people's lives. So
Yeah,
it's amazing.
it is. I love that. And I think it goes back to your head and heart. Like if you're feeling that in your gut and you notice that T, that means something to you. It doesn't really matter what anyone else thinks. That to you has now evolved your word and evolved your meaning. And it's connecting dots for you that makes sense. So then you can carry on and be like, right, I'll do
Beautiful.
a T and the cross.
That's Michelle. That is so, so important. So more and more, my narrative is this is my truth. I don't need to sell it to anyone. I'm not trying to sell it to anyone. You choose your own truth, and your truth can be completely opposite to my truth. That doesn't matter. It doesn't mean we can't be friends. It doesn't mean we can't be in love. It doesn't. But I'm 100% aligned with that. I'm not on this mission anymore to sell this as this is just an experience that I'm sharing, and people can choose if they want to engage with it or not. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm taking responsibility for my own potential.
Yeah. I love it. I'd love to. I always ask people this question at the end, and you've maybe covered it off, but maybe you've not. What do you believe the world and people need to know right now?
I'm going to answer it slightly longer. My vision is to play a part in South Africa finding its purpose as a country. Because there's 195 countries in the world and only one is driven by purpose. The rest are driven by GDP, bottom line, money. And money is important. It creates sustainability, but we are imbalanced. And hence, I would say the most important thing for the world is to discover its purpose. Because I think it will create so much more unity. Because there's so much that divides us. But in my experience, what does unite you at a bigger level is this concept of purpose that I've experienced in business, because our business has a purpose, and we're on a journey of learning how to live it more profoundly, which we don't at a high level, but we're doing a lot better than last year and the previous. Every year we get better. And as I said, we're just on a journey, but we've got a rudder, and it's made a significant difference to our business. So I think this thinking is applicable at a human level, as human beings, as business beings, and potentially at a planet being level.
Amazing. Well, thank you. That honestly, I could chat to you for another 2 or 3 hours, and I'm sure we just unlock more infinite power and possibilities. But Pepe, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for just being you and speaking your truth, because even that in itself is just so powerful. So yeah, thank you so much for being on here.
Thanks, Michelle. And thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to just export a bit of this thinking, which is not my thinking. That's another thing I'm very clear on. It's not I'm so clever. This is a gift, and to be able to share it across our borders to the beautiful Scotland, where I haven't been yet.
Maybe you're coming. Maybe Scotland's drawing you in.
You never know. I was close. We were driving through England in June last year and to Ireland, and so I then took the family last year.
Yeah.
So you never know. But thank you. I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. I'll see you soon, everyone. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. Remember, download the Yoga Nidra right after this episode. Make sure you have a listen. It's the most beautiful guided meditation that will regenerate your mind, your body, and your soul. Take care. See you soon.